Hello, hello. Welcome back. Nicole Holland here. My guest today is known as the Master Connector. Lou Diamond is a dear friend with an affinity for helping people succeed. Over 25 years of sales, relationship management, business development, and executive coaching experience blend here to make him a highly sought after international keynote speaker, consultant, leadership, and performance coach. He's also a best-selling author, CEO of S.A.F.E, a company focused on making the most amazing people, businesses, and brands become even more amazing through the power of connecting, and not to mention a fellow podcaster of the top-rated show Thrive Loud, which I highly recommend. He also cracks himself up, so I might have to crack out the whip just a bit today, but we're sure to have fun over the next 50 minutes or so as Lou takes us through his Connect to Thrive process for becoming a master connector in today's masterclass session. Welcome back, Lou.
I am so excited to be here, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me. It's every time we connect, it's just magic. It's all good. Brilliance comes back and forth. I feel I learn sometimes more from you in these sessions when you ask me really powerful questions. So I always kind of walk away and go, gee, that was really effective. So hopefully your listeners will have the same.
I think you're blowing smoke, but I appreciate that.
No, I don't know if I would blow smoke. I've got one of those machines, the smoke machines over here. We can handle that. So.
All right. So let's dive in because we do have a lot to cover. So in a nutshell, what is your connect through blah, blah, blah. So let's dive in because we've got a lot to cover. In a nutshell, what is your Connect to Thrive process that you're going to walk us through?
So the most important message you need to know is that to thrive in today's world, you cannot do so without strong, powerful connections. And what I actually learned a long time ago was that if we decoded actually how you can connect and actually the muscles that you need to work on in what I call your connecting core, not only can you thrive, you can make fun of my pun for this all day long, but you can thrive loud. Thrive at the top of your game, be the best that you can be in everything you do.
Awesome. I love it. All right. So where do we start? What are those connecting muscles, or where you kick us off?
So I love to start with the safe. Everyone's got a safe, right? We lock things in it. We put things in there. We go on vacation. We hope no one ever remembers that code that you have to punch in when you put stuff away. But with me, the safe is really straightforward. If anyone who's ever known this, and I know that Nicole knows this really well because she has been working out like a bandit, just running around and getting herself in shape. Everything is about strengthening your core, your physical core, right? You're doing workouts and push-ups and sit-ups and squats and burpees, all these things that you need to do. And when you do that, you then can start to do the things that you want to do. If you want to go run a race, you want to go ride a bike ride, you want to go climb a mountain, it all starts with a strong connecting core. Start with a physical core. When you want to connect to people, we have to work on those muscles. I call them the SAFE, S-A-F-E. I'm going to do it backwards here because it's a little bit easier. The E is the power of empathy. The F is the fearless mindset. The A is authenticity. And the S is your super why, which we will culminate with, I think, in walking through the descriptions. And I have steps for and exercises really for each one of these muscles to help you be a better connector. So if you want to grow your business, if you want to improve your brand and connect to more customers, as a leader, if you want to connect better with your employees and your staff and the people that are important to the strategic relationships in your world, having a strong connecting core will enable you to thrive. Which muscle should we go through first? I'm going to let you pick the muscle. We don't have to necessarily go in order. Just like any workout, we can go do that. So where do you want me to start, Nicole?
Let's start with authenticity.
Okay, authenticity, and I love that you're starting here. Because of all of those connecting core muscles, this is the linchpin. This is the most important muscle in your entire connecting core. Because without authenticity, we know it's almost impossible to connect. I want to share a quick little story, and then I'll go through what you need to do to work on the muscles. Think about authenticity, and I call it being open, honest, and coming from the heart in everything you do. And I mean everything you do. focused on literally working on doing that with each way that you communicate and connect with people. Have you ever been in a situation where someone maybe tried to sell you something and they may have lied, they may have not really told you exactly what the real truth was? It could be from like a car that you had or used car that might have had, I'm interested in buying this car, and you said there were 10,000 miles, and the minute you look at the speedometer, there's like 200,000 miles on it, right? Someone's not being genuine with you. What does that do to you, Nicole? Just start out of a game. When someone tells you something initially, and then you learn that it is not only not true, but it's a lie.
They're dead to me.
Okay, perfect.
I have that's one of my biggest things where I want to believe people. And when I realize that they're lying to me, I want nothing more to do with them.
Nicole, you have exemplified really what actually happens on the inside to us. But that's what I love about you. You're going to let everyone know what's on your shoulder, what it is. There's no hiding it. But when people lie to you, when people don't tell you the truth, when people are disingenuous, when they're not authentic, Nicole, it is absolutely something that it won't even enable you to connect together. It's going to make you repel, because it will be the thing that you remember most about that individual, about that situation in the scenario. I talk about this often when I speak in front of audiences. I talk about an experience where I went to buy something for my wife, and it was promised under certain things. And when I got it, it wasn't that particular item. And it did not matter what this individual did to the price, adjusted any situation around it. It meant nothing, because it was that lack of not being clear. I went to a similar place that did not have exactly what my wife or what I was looking for. But that individual came forward and authentically said, look, I don't have exactly what that is. Here's what I do have, and here's the best that I can do. The level of appreciation I had for that individual doing business with them was established, and that actually established a connection with me, even though that person didn't have what I was looking for. The level of authenticity of him being open with me, truthful, honest, coming right out there. And by the way, you can tell when someone is not coming from the heart or not. You know when they believe it. You ever deal with a salesperson who doesn't really believe what they're selling, how it just doesn't click and connect with you? I'll also say this physically. I'll do this because we're on video here. If you've ever dealt with someone who says, well, listen, I'm really interested in learning more about your business, and they kind of like close off, their legs are closed, they're maybe even shying away from you. I bet if you looked at their feet, they might not be pointing in the same direction as you. That's not being open. That's in fact physically being closed. Being open is literally being not just honest and coming from out here, but it's physically showing that stance. When you physically meet with someone, connect, even if you do it online in a forum like we're doing right now on a Zoom call, it really is important to open up when you are being authentic. This physicality is actually letting through energy for you. And it's really important to show that, because you want to be vulnerable. Now, a lot of people have issues with this. They don't want to open up, or they might show a little bit of shyness or reluctance. If you ever want to see if someone's being authentic with you, check their body language immediately. Look to see if they're being open physically. That physicality is really important. A great way to work on this muscle, if you're about to deliver a speech or even practice what you talk about, look in front of the mirror, look in front of a video camera, see if you're physically being open. And I will let you know that it will let people in. And there is something amazing about the power of authenticity, Nicole. That is that when you open up, other people want to open up too. If you show that vulnerability, they also want to be let into you. So we covered the honesty piece. We covered the open piece. Coming from the heart piece. This is tough. A lot of people have trouble tapping into really who they are and what they believe. And maybe it's because they were burned previously, or they don't feel they've known someone right away. Understand what I'm trying to help in this masterclass. I'm helping you try to connect with another individual. This is a truly give and take relationship. When you want to connect in business and life, in every situation you have, even your brand that you have from your website, does your website authentically, openly communicate what's inside of you, what's inside of your company, a belief? I love businesses that really do honor and code what they do. I always talk about Southwest Airlines will always be one of my favorite examples of authenticity. versus another airline like United. You remember when they dragged off that passenger about a little over a year ago, and United communicated like this. Even the CEO was kind of like this with his arms folded, and he talked about a certain policy and how his employees did well, and this was great. But they never apologized to the passenger they dragged off the plane. They didn't think about the fact that anyone who potentially flies could be a customer of theirs. And in the same breath, Southwest Airlines did something amazing. When United had settled with that passenger, the CEO came out and said, "We saw what United did. We didn't like the way they handled it. We want to let you know how we feel. We are going to eliminate overbooking on every flight we've ever done." It was in their messaging, it was in their communication. It even in their seating is an open seating intentionally, right? You can go in and sit wherever it is and in any part of the plane. That's who they are. That's their brand. And we know exactly what we get. We actually can feel the heart of its original founder and all the employees at that company. That's an example of the things that you need to see in trying to connect with people and being authentic. So that's the muscles there. To practice these things, work on your physicality openly. Be honest. This is really simple. Don't try to hide the truth. Tell honestly what is the situation at hand. You will always be better off by telling the truth in business and in personal life. Trust me. It will always come back to haunt you if you don't tell the truth. And that whole component of being open and working from the heart, this takes practice. This takes a comfortability, if that's a new word, we're going to create it. And I love the fact when people really show who they are from their inside. Tell them what you feel. Tell them how you feel is a great way to let you know what's coming from your heart. And the more you practice that, the more people are going to want to connect with you, and you'll work on that authenticity muscle. You want to segue? You want to segue to the next muscle? I've had some coffee.
So I missed actually what was F.
F is the fearless mindset.
Okay,
and
so let's go there.
So this is an important one. And I always like to clarify that this is moving through fear into courage. That is what we need to do to have a fearless mindset. To your listeners out there, this is really important, Nicole. It is not being void of fear. There is no one out there who is void of fear. I don't believe in that. We all have fears. I used to not think that fear was real. I used to think it was a state of mind, or maybe we just weren't confident enough. You need confidence to overcome fear. However, we have so many fears each and every day. And if you're an entrepreneur, you wake up with them every single day. Will we do enough business today? Will I make my client happy? Is my pipeline where I need it to be? Do I have a plan to make sure I'm mapping to it and I'm heading towards it? Am I achieving my numbers? Am I getting my goals? Am I doing what I wanted to do? Am I really growing out and stepping out there as an entrepreneur and being successful? Okay. In everything I just said right there, there's a fear hidden somewhere in there, and they pop up like little gremlins on your shoulder. They'll pop up, and depending on how loudly they scream, it will affect how you are as an individual. And fears can drag us down. Fears can actually physically hold us back to where we are. I used to show this image in one of my presentations. It showed like a body like curled up in the fetal position on the floor like this, down there going, "Oh my God, I don't want to face the day. I've got so many responsibilities. I've got too many things to do. I'm afraid to fail. I'm afraid to see the successes that I'm trying to seek." All of those things, Nicole, all those things are fears that we all have inside of us. And there is a process on how you move through fear into courage. There actually is something, and there are drills you can do, and it's a 3-step process. Okay, the first one is really the most difficult. You have to choose to face your fear. Step 1, choose to face your fear. There are days that I know I'm looking at it right now. We're recording this towards the end of the month. I hate the end of the month, Nicole. I have to do all my expenses. I got to submit my bills. I have to pay my bills. It's always that time of year where I'm stressing, "Oh my God, did I bring in enough revenue this month to cover everything I needed to do?" And I will push off doing those expenses, doing the things because I know that I don't feel as good. They're not as fun as doing marketing videos or doing podcasts or working with my clients or working on making my clients even better. But I have to do those expenses. It is a job that I have to do, and I do have to face them. I have lots of reminders every single day, the last day of the month, to remind me, "Do your expenses, Lou. Go do them." But that fear that I have is I have to basically step up and say, okay, you know what? I have to choose to face this fear. I have to wake up and say, I got to deal with it. It's going to be there no matter what the end of the month is going to come, no matter what my expenses are going to be there. I have to pay them. I have to do it. So let's decide to do it. That same attitude needs to be applied to, I have to pick up the phone to call that prospect that I'm waiting to hear if they're going to do business with me on. One of the most common fears, believe it or not, is the fear of hearing the word no. Fear of rejection. I'm going to tell you something about the word no. I love the word no. I love the word no. Do you know why I love the word no? I love the word no because when someone tells me no, it does two things. One, it makes me know that I've completed that task of asking that client, hey, are we going to do business together? And they say no. Great. Now I could focus on all the other prospects that I have. I don't have to waste another ounce of energy, time, or anything on this particular client. But no also does something else. No also then is followed with, why aren't we doing business together? Why won't you do business with me? And figure out what I can do better to improve myself. So I actually want people to get to know faster. That's facing your fear of rejection right away. So one, I want to choose to face the fear. I have to choose to make that decision. Two, we have to name the fear. We actually have to give it a name, something that we can identify it as. I've actually, my biggest fear that I had for a long time was a word that I literally get nauseous every time I say it. The word is mediocrity. I'm actually afraid, Nicole, of being mediocre because I love being a top performer. I love being better than mediocre. I want to be above average. I want to be the best I could be. I want to thrive loud. That's what I'm about. So the word mediocre to me kind of feels like failure. It feels like, like, oh my God, like I feel like that feeling in your throat, that gross feeling when you've eaten something goes to the top of your throat. I know that's gross for your listeners, but that's what it feels like to me. But I recognize that I have this fear. So I actually gave him a name. I call him Medio. He sits on my shoulder, Medio. And Medio is the one that basically says, you're a pretty good podcaster, but that Nicole Holland, she is a rock star. You are no freaking Nicole Holland. You're just an average dude. I go, well, what can I do to be better than that? Well, you can work harder. You can work on your communication styles, improve your content. You can constantly use social media to market. You can do all these things to get me off of it. I actually use that Medio guy as a launch pad. I use it almost like as a trampoline. When I see the word mediocre, I kind of say, okay, I'm going to use it as a springboard to figure out how I can be better than best. That's the third action.
You copy my stuff.
Every day. No, I'll say this.
You do copy my stuff.
I do copy your stuff. Actually,
I learned
before
so much from you.
Well, this is a mutual learning. We both have great respect for one another, and everyone has their peers that they look at. And by the way, that is a great way to take yourself to the next level of mediocrity. But my fear of mediocrity is also part of, I want to constantly do better. So if we first choose to face the fear, to give it a name, I literally looks kind of like underdog over here. He could sit on my shoulder like this, and he's like little Medio, will whisper in my ear, and there are days that he's louder than most. I'm going to let you know that it's the third part. We have to take that fear and we have to spin it on its head. We have to turn the fear upside down. If I'm afraid of being mediocre, guess what, by the way? Mediocre is better than half the people in the entire world, and you're going to have days that are mediocre. But most days, Lou, you're way above mediocre. You're a rock star. You're going to be the best that you can be. It's just that moment right now that you feel this way. When you recognize what the fear is, you've given it a name, you've chosen to face it, and now you flip it on its head. That is how you move through fear into that place of courage, of greatness, of brilliance. And that is a muscle in the connecting core that master connectors need to have. We want to connect with people who aren't a little shy and shady. We don't want to hang out with those people. We want to hang out with the people who are confident, who know how to move through fear, who recognize adversity and can step over it. Those are the things that we're attracted to. So if we have fears, we cannot let that muscle overcome it. We have to achieve the fearless mindset in our connecting core to be as strong as we possibly can be. Helpful? Moving on. We got 2 more letters. She's like, I don't know what letter we're up to.
I know what letter we're on.
Which one do you want me to hit?
Let's go with empathy.
Empathy.
We'll end with the super Y because it has a super on it.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, let's go through the power of empathy. I have always used as the description of it standing in the shoes of another and seeing things from their perspective and understanding their world. I coach a lot of people. I work with a lot of great leaders. And so often I'll hear a certain situation and I'll want to solve that problem right away. What do I take if let's say I'm working with you, Nicole, and I'm helping you with a certain instance. You're launching a new show and you want to get it out there and you've come to me for advice and you were asking me a couple of questions. If I give you the answer right away, what do I take away from you?
The opportunity for me to figure it out on my own.
Well, that's kind of it. It's not only figuring it out on your own. Sometimes if I give the answer and I tell someone that, it's a little bit more powerful if I draw it out of them, because there could be an example of what you come up with. I might be minimizing the potential of what you can deliver. There's a great story. A fellow colleague of mine coached a huge company and was working with the CEO. The CEO happened to be overweight, really overweight. And he personally wanted to improve his physical condition and recognized that this was a great initiative. It was going to take a lot of time on his behalf, some personal focus. He had to change his diet. He had to start exercising more. And he recognized that this was a cool idea. And he got the idea because there were a lot of people in his company that wanted to do the same. He also recognized that he was a reflection of the entire company and how it represented. So he wanted to put forth this healthy way of living to his whole organization. Now, he was working with a coach, and he said to this particular coach, a former partner and colleague of mine, he said, "So what do you think I should do?" Now, that coach literally had an answer in his head, and he really wanted to have an answer. He says, "Why don't you come up with a contest with the executive team? Why don't you get the executive team to do like a weight loss kind of thing for a certain amount of month, or make it a healthy month?" And that was what was going through in his head. And he was at the precipice of about to let things out. But instead, what he wanted to do was he really wanted to step into his shoes and say, "Listen, I want you to explain to me what you want out of this." So he said, "Well, instead of me coming up with an idea, what do you think would be a great idea?" And he put it back onto him. Well, what the CEO came up with was so much bigger and so much more powerful than anything that this particular friend and colleague and coach of mine did. What he said was, "Let's get the entire organization to be on the same plan to lose weight. And I'm going to match money for people. If they want to belong to a gym, I'm going to contribute to that. If they hit certain goals, we're going to put it on the websites. We're going to honor it. We're going to make the entire culture about everybody working on helping to make themselves better." The whole company, not just the executive team. This is a 4,000 person company. The coach would limited himself. Had he given the answer and what he thought, who knows, maybe we never would have gotten that answer out. And that would have been good enough. But instead, it came out of their perspective. He stepped into his shoes and he enabled him to do it. And that's what great coaching does. And that's what great listeners do. The ability to listen, to be able to step in one's shoes is a huge advantage. Listen to the problems of your clients. Listen to the problems of your employees. Listen to the situation at hand, even of your competitors and those that you're trying to bring in as your prospects. I've been on too many sales presentations in my life where I've seen somebody say, "Hi, this is my company, and here's all the great things we do." And they show what I call the logo slide of death. You know this slide? The logo slide of death? I love that. Like, hey, what's the logo slide of death, Nicole, is really straightforward. It's got every logo that we've ever worked with. And people will walk into sales meetings and they'll lead with this. They'll come in and say, "Hey, we really like your business, but let me talk about how great I am. Let me hear how great I am, and I want to show you what my company has done and what we have done over here. And here's a list of everyone in the entire world that has worked with us that isn't you." That's basically what you do when you do that. When you come from your position, when you're not stepping into their shoes, as opposed to starting a meeting and saying, "Listen, we want to hear about your problems. Tell us what's bothering you and how we can help you. What's going on in your world?" And asking question after question after question. This is what great coaches do, what great leaders do, and great salespeople do, is ask great questions. We don't lead with the slide of here's everything that's about us. The only person that matters, the only logo that matters is the prospect that you're trying to do business with. The power of empathy has three things that you need to do. One is to be more coach-like, to truly be a coach and empower your clients to come up with the best solutions that work for them. Work on listening. I do a whole thing when I speak, Nicole, about the different levels of listening. And listening really begins when you start actually focusing and listening on another individual, which in coaching speak is called listening level 2. We work with clients in getting them to be in listening level 2, to embrace that power of empathy. That is to focus on the client, not on you. Don't make it about you. It's a sad stat that when we start talking about people, your listeners are listening to this fact too, that 98% of the time when we hear someone say something, we relate it back to us, to how it affects us. And if any of your listeners right now just heard that stat and say, there's no way that 98% of the time I do that, I've proven my point. Takes you a while to get there, but you'll get it, listeners. Okay. And so we be more coach-like, we be more listening, and more importantly, we step into their shoes. This is the power of empathy. You literally have to see things from their world. If you were them, what would I do is a question that I ask all the time. If I'm this client and they have a problem of trying to get more business, what are the things that I can do from their shoes? What are the assets I have? Don't take it from an outsider's point of view. Step into their shoes. Use words like team and we and us. Those are the things that will actually get your team to work much better. That power of empathy, Nicole, is really the most coachable and area that everybody can improve on. Being a better coach, being a better listener, and stepping into the shoes. That's the muscles that you can work on your power of empathy. And by doing that alone, not only will you get more connected with your customers, you'll close a lot more business. Maybe most importantly, you will grow closer to your clients and partners than you ever would have imagined, because you really are thinking of a we approach instead of a me approach.
I love it.
Now we need music. Dun, 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 dun. Come on, the super why, right? We're up to the final muscle here. Okay, the super why is one of the most challenging and difficult muscles because it is a very overarching, almost kind of thematic muscle that we have. And it is really living our purpose each and every day on this planet. So it's, if you know from Simon Sinek, he talked about start with why in his book, and that most successful salespeople communicate in his global circle. You go from, if the outside is what you do and how you do it and why you do it, if you go from the inside out, why you do what you do, how it's done, and what you can do with that, that's much more effective. So if we drill down, though, into the why, everyone has a super why. Everyone has a reason why they're on this planet. You read in my bio at the opening, if anyone is still with us. Of course they are. If they're still with us, we know that those that I love working with the most amazing people and companies in this world and help them thrive through the power of connecting. That is the reason I was put on this planet. That is what I'm born to do every day. That is what Thrive is about. That is what I bring to my listeners on Thrive Loud. And that is me living my super why, that purpose each and every day. When we come across people who understand their purpose and are thriving in doing that each and every day, it draws us to them. We are enamored by these people who have such defined focus and direction on what they do. Truth be told, listeners, when I learned about what Nicole does in her business and how great she does it and how she puts forward her clients in the interviews that convert and brings great guests to people. That's how I initially was engaged with Nicole. I will let you know that the quality of what came through there, because that's exactly what she's all about. She has a sense of purpose. She has a very high standard for her clients and her customers and the people that she works with, and helps raise them to another level. It is why I like working with Nicole, and because I know that I'm going to get the best possible guests, the best possible people to work with, because that's the standard that she uplifts each and every day. We love connecting with people like this. And there's a reason, because when we see people like this, it helps us kind of define what our superpower is. We all have it. And it sounds all woo-woo-y and kind of kitschy about having a superpower, but somewhere deep inside every single one of these listeners, you have it. Being able to find it is difficult. But once you do, living and breathing and practicing it each and every day, flexing that super muscle in your connecting core is the one that kind of shines and enables others to really see that. When you walk into a room and you see someone that looks larger in life, trust me, they've got their super why at full flex, pumping, and they know exactly who they are and why they do what they do.
Nice. All right. So now we have got the muscles. Do we have some workouts, or what's the next step?
Yeah. So each one of those, we hinted to some of those workouts. So I'll go around again.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you, because you get I took lots of notes. So we have the different points to building them and to living with them. But what's the next step we should focus on for the system of connecting to thrive?
Absolutely. So in each one of these instances, we need to understand how to define them for ourselves first. This is where we get to be a little bit selfish. To work on your connecting core, no different than, there's lots of different exercises you can do to strengthen your own physical core. This is true about each one of the connecting core muscles. However, there are certain things you need to do to begin working on those muscles. And I think that's more important for your listeners. It's almost coming up with the workout plan for each one of those. So let's go back and we'll talk about your super why. The super why, I had an amazing guest in my program, and we did our interview on Thrive Loud, and then we were on the phone for another 3 hours afterwards because he has such a brilliant concept. And I've incorporated it into helping people define their super why. And this is something he calls, this is Ryan Foland, I'm giving him the shout out and credit. He calls it the 3-1-3. And it's really simple. It's define why you do what you do in 3 sentences, 3 bullet points, if you'd like. Some people think in bullets. And then take those 3 sentences and convert them into one sentence, that one well-defined sentence that defines what you do. And even better is to take that and then break it into 3 powerful words. Now, we do this exercise for a lot of brands and companies. We actually do this so that companies can figure out how to best message themselves. But we realized how powerful it is in defining your super why. When you're trying to figure out the game plan for how you can work on your purpose on this planet, some people know it right away, and they could spell out those 3 sentences, and then that one sentence, and then 3 key words. Mine happens to be connector, motivator, thriver, are my big 3 words that when I come down to it. And that's what I do. And I make sure each day, I actually have them written over here. You can't see it with the camera. It says connector, motivator, thriver. And what that does is each day, my workout is, did I connect to new people each and every day to extend my message to help those thrive each and every day? Did I motivate someone today? Did I motivate myself? Did I motivate others? And did I help that other person or myself thrive by doing that? And thrive by do something that is, here's the standard for what we do. Here's doing it at that other level. And my measurable tasks are to work on these muscles each and every day, because when you do your 3-1-3 and you define who you are, you now can work on those 3 words each day as a way to focus on strengthening your super why. So we'll send this in your show notes. I actually have it so you can put in there so you can actually spell out all of these pieces. And that's one way to do it. There's a whole slew of other ways to come up with your why. If your listeners are like really not sure, well, what is my superpower, my super why? I'm not really sure. We have lots of other ways to do it. We've done ways we've had other colleagues actually submit a lot of words that describe who you are to help you fine tune what those words can be. You can talk to a lot of your clients, which is also a really great way to do it. Your clients actually know why they work with you. It's actually a great question. Why do you want to do business with me? Why do you do business with me? And you'd be surprised at some of those answers. And a lot of times similar words come up, and those become those defining superpower characteristics. That's your superpower, kind of like pulsating out there and showing itself every once in a while. So that's my exercises for your super why. I'm going to leave authenticity for the last. We'll come back to your fearless exercise. I want to talk about fearless mindset. This is the hardest, and this is the most difficult muscle to coach, because our fears are kind of annoying, right? They creep up on you. Our fears, the fear of boring Nicole might do that, but we know that's because she had a really big lunch today. She's tired.
Sorry, I have to explain because nobody could see me. just you.
Just me.
So
That's true.
yeah, I just yawned. I'm sorry.
It's
It's
okay.
lights and the day, but
I'm
absolutely
boring
not
her.
boring at all.
So the fearless mindset. Listing your fears. I talked about the three things you need to do. One is to choose to face your fear. Two, identify your fears. We do a great exercise with Thrive and my clients that we deal with, and it is called Facing Your Fears. It's actually a phobia lecture, which is the fear of being immediately authentic, FOBIA. This workshop is powerful. We really work on your fears. It's fear coaching. Really understand what holds you back from being great. And there's some interesting fears people have. Look, it's not just your fears in business and your life overlap. I joke about smartphones all the time that they're a great reminder, that the workday never ends because but it's also a really important reminder of how important our personal lives weave into our business lives and vice versa. So those things that happen every day in your personal life could really hold you back. So what I do is we list out a lot of fears that people have and we write them down on big cardboard boxes that look like this big cardboard cutouts. And we'll write those fears down and we'll step in those fears and understand what does it mean to fear rejection to you. That could mean losing business. It could be, if you're in the dating world, it can be having a guy or a woman say no to you. It can be your friends not wanting to hang out with you. There's lots of fears of rejection that we have, not doing business with you. Write down what it does to you. Write down how each one of the fears you have actually affects you personally. Physically, where does it hurt? I will walk through a situation. I will tell you, as I mentioned earlier, when I have to do my expenses at the end of every month, I still get a little gut in my stomach. It's like a tightening of the muscle, a stress about money, a stress about having to deal with that issue that, man, I'm not making enough of it, or I need to make more. Am I failing? Those are things that come out, and understanding that fear. So writing down what you physically feel, where you feel it. There are some people, Nicole, who get it here in their shoulders. They get it right in their neck. Some people get it even, like they lose sleep over it. They get cramps in their legs. I've heard everything. But understanding why that physical fear is there is good because it's understanding the symptoms. This is what doctors do, right? When something's bothering you, they always say, where does it hurt? I love that. Does it hurt when I grab your arm here? Well, yes. Well, then I won't grab your arm there. Does it hurt in all these different places? What they're doing is they're trying to detect what the problem is. That's what you're doing. You are detecting what the fears are. The fears aren't the problem. The fears are part of who you are. And once you better understand what they are and you're able to give them names, the fear of rejection, the fear of mediocrity, that fear of being immediately being authentic, all of those fears are really a great way for you to construct the game plan to say, okay, when I start feeling this and it starts hurting in my stomach, I know what the fear is, I name what it is, and then I do what is the cure to all of it is spin that fear on its head. And so once you've listed down the symptoms of the fear, you flip it around with this contrarian statement. So I'm afraid to fail in business. Well, guess what? You just might succeed. Guess what? Most people fail every day. The best baseball players fail 3 out of every 10 times they're up at the plate, or 7 out of every 10 times. They only succeed 30% of the time, the best ones. Understanding that is very important so that you can get a grasp of looking at the fear and flipping it on its head into the place of courage that makes you successful. Writing these down is the exercise you need to do for your game plan, for your workout on your fearless mindset. What's left? We talked about your super why. We talked about the fearless mindset. Did we talk about the other two yet?
Well, you said you were leaving empathy for the end.
Right.
So we have authenticity.
So authenticity is really straightforward, and we covered in the beginning. Open, honest, coming from the heart. I talked about the physicality, the exercise. Actually practice in front of the mirror a presentation you're going to do and stand open. And this is okay. I say this all the time, and I have this joke all the time. We do a lot of workshops with just chairs in a room, and usually they're in a circle. This is not me being inappropriate. There's a way to sit as a man or a woman that is open, that is not man-spreading or spreading your legs too wide. No, it's a way of sitting with your posture and your shoulders back to enable yourself to not only project, but also share your feelings, share your openness with other individuals. It's a way of being open without physically being too open. Practice it. practice that exercise a lot because it's actually really good. It's great for your speaking. It's great for podcasting too. And it's also really great when you're in the office because people will appreciate that openness and want to be open too. You will see the connections and also see those that don't want to connect with you because maybe they're not being authentic or they're not going to be the right person and partner for you to deal with. That physicality is a great sense. Yeah.
I'm going to pause you there because I think that's something really worth just talking about a little bit. I find that a lot of people feel like they need to be liked and need to be received well by everyone. And they can be, and I mean, I think all of us go through this to some degree. We can get 100 5-star reviews on our show or on our book or whatever. And that one review, it's like just the 1-star nasty review is just brutal, right? But I think even when we're in public situations or group settings, oftentimes we tend to focus on who's rubbing us the wrong way or what is not, who our people are not. And so do you want to speak to that a little bit about how to overcome that? I mean, it's a little bit off topic, but I think it's really tied in. Or am I off point? Like, do you not find this with your clients and the people that you work with?
It is one of the great things in becoming more coach-like, which is part of that empathy message, and listening really enables you to understand who's being authentic and who's not. And I think I tend to be more glass half full and not as extreme. Although I'm in the same camp with you, someone does lie to me in a business situation. They're out of the club. We're not going to be doing business with that person, nor should you have to. Because I always flip it around to the other scenario. If someone is being disingenuous to me, if I was that person and I was being disingenuous to someone else, would I want to be with me? Right? Would I want to be with that person that's there? And that's the key message about the whole thing. You want to be able to trust everyone that you work with to a point that really enables you to succeed without having to worry about someone being dishonest and distrustful. That's why it's very important that you want to have someone that represents the best of you as the people that you connect with. And to your point, when you start to identify people that aren't meeting up to those standards, what I like to do is have a conversation about it, specifically if it's an existing relationship. And if it's a new one, it probably puts you on that same hesitancy scale. If they're not being the best way they can be, do you want to be? It's like you don't want to be such an open book right away.
Yeah, and you don't really have to have a relationship with somebody that
Correct.
No, but just I think sometimes we have a tendency, or many people have a tendency to focus on the vibe or the awareness of when they're being, because they practice authenticity or empathy or what have you. And so sometimes, like you said, the more coach-like you become, the more tuned in you are, I guess, to the people around you. And so when you get tuned in and you notice that somebody's not being authentic or they're not your kind of people, just sort of not focusing on them, just letting them be, and just preserving your attention for the people that are in resonance.
I think the way to think of it, when I say you're not in the club, if we were two circles and we were connected, when you meet someone that's authentic, the circles more or less overlap. Think of it like a Venn diagram, if you would, like two circles in that common area. And that common area is me seeing into your world and you seeing into mine. And in that scenario, when someone's repelled or they've been disingenuous and they're part of the organization you're dealing with, it could be problematic. It also, you're right, might create a situation where you grow a strong relationship with one and you end up not paying attention to the other. But it's very important to make sure, to your point, that you don't let that squeaky wheel totally ruin everything, and recognize that that is something addressable. And what I've always said is that when I speak to leaders of companies and I learn that people who work underneath them might fall into this category, that they need to address this. Maybe I'm not the one who's going to connect with this, but someone who is connected with them really needs to think about that, because they're a reflection of that company's, of that organization. So I'm with you. It is focusing on those that you have the strong, authentic relationship with, And when that distraction does happen, it's hard to let those people in, and it might not be worth that effort. That's really the way to look at it. Is it worth that effort? Because do that flip thing that I do. If I was that way to myself, would I want to hang out with me that often? So that's why I always want to be the best representation of yourself. To practice this open, we talked about the physicality, honesty, brutal honesty is the word I want to go with. Brutal honesty and being clear to people as to why you need to be that way. The from the heart part, I think you find in time. I always joke about the fact that I have relationships with people from different tiers of my career where we really got to know one another at certain stages of our lives. From my days in the 20s to having kids, young kids, older kids, whatever. There are certain bonds and connections that you have with those people that I've worked with in the past. And that level of openness and really that it always stays. You let your heart has they say that you have no idea the ability of how strong you can be. You can be unbelievably strong, and we are much stronger than we think we are. Our hearts have an unbelievable capacity to take in and really absorb feelings for not only just loving or caring, but it's really to be from a place of where we want to be, that real essential core of being a connector and being able to thrive comes from having to tap into that. I've always said this, if you've ever seen any of those acting class movies where they show an actor or actress and the instructor is trying to get them to be in the role, to get them to step deep into it. And they're doing a great job. They know the lines, they're showing the emotions, but are they really feeling it? And when they do, and they nail it, and you get a reaction from that, whether it's a tear in the audience, a laugh in the audience, whatever it might be, you know that you've gotten from a place inside that really connects with everybody. That's what connection is all about. And that really is why that authenticity is such a linchpin for everything we do. The last exercise we'll finish up with is the empathy. And we talked about, being more coach-like, which actually is something that I'll send to your notes. It's about coming from a place of asking versus telling. Coaches do that. They ask great questions. What do you think would be the best answer, Nicole? As opposed to, Nicole, you should do this. We don't like to be told things at a certain age in life. Like when we're little, we learn, hey, a teacher told me 2 + 2 is 4. A doctor said, I need to take this medicine. It'll make me feel better. A lawyer said, I need to keep my mandated 20-yard distance from that person. These are things that happen. I'm just kidding. These are things that you need to be told. And when you're told, you learn from them and you actually can absorb them. Whereas when you get older or when you matured as a student or as a person in profession, being asked about something is actually empowering you to do something. I have a lot of leaders now that they've talked about the generational issue, the millennial issue, and a lot of ways of helping to communicate with them is to really empower them and bring them together. I don't know when the line was drawn that I used to be told what to do by a boss or someone superior to me over my career, and I was okay doing it, and somehow that role has gone out the window in this generation. However, I recognize there's a power in how you ask that question. You may even get a better response. No different than that leader who wanted to lose weight and then got his whole company to. Coming from a place of asking what that person can do. That is being more coach-like. That is beginning to step into the shoes of another to understand what they are. Listening. We didn't go through the 3 levels of listening. However, being in what we call listening level 2 or 3, which is a much deeper level listening where the only thing that matters is you. Podcasts are great for this because everyone right now is listening to what I have to say and they're hearing it from their perspective. But I'm just telling right now. I love being in your chair when I'm hosting because I'm totally in listening level 2. I'm not making it about me or about my stories. I am making it about the guest and asking them the questions because that's going to empower them to be more coach-like in that great place of listening. And that stat I gave you, that 98% of the time when we hear something, we go, oh, that's happened to me before. Like, oh, I had a terrible commute into the city today. The subway was really warm, it was really hot. Oh, if you think that's bad, listen to my commute. I drove in a cab and the cab broke down on 23rd Street and then I had to walk 6 blocks. Nobody cares at that point. You're not listening. You're not connecting when you're not listening. You're not embracing that muscle of empathy. You need to be in that listening level 2 where you really care about, oh my God, was the train really that bad? Did you have a seat? Was there any air conditioning in the car? Could you get out an earlier stop? What were you wearing? Did you sweat through your clothes? That's being in listening level 2. Really asking questions and a powerful place of where you can be. I think I've given a lot of instructions here for people, and we're going to have to write these out in show notes so people can really absorb this masterclass. What do you think, Nicole?
Yeah. And do you have a free gift or something you would like for people to go and claim that may also help them out?
I think I do have a free gift. I think we're going to have to. I think we're going to have to give a link to the book, to Master the Art of Connecting. And we're going to have to give a special, we'll create a special code or account for that so that people can get the book at a certain.
Why don't we do that at /Nicole Holland? So if you want to give the listeners your website /Nicole Holland.
We're going to go to thriveloud.com/Nicole Holland, and I will offer you a special promotion at the launch of the show for a certain time to get a copy of Master the Art of Connecting, which is right here, showing to your users. There she is.
Fabulous.
And that will show you actually how you work on all those muscles and a lot of stories around them and ways that you truly can tap into becoming a master connector and strengthening that connecting core.
Very good. I appreciate that I've got a signed copy. Thank you for that.
It was truly my pleasure.
Awesome. So, well, you have definitely given us a lot to take in, and for sure there's going to be key takeaways on the show notes page, and of course grabbing Lou's book at
thriveloud.com// or // Is it / or // It's a // yeah. thriveloud.com/Nicole Holland. I'm going to make it all one word. No dots, no nothing. It's all going to be together.
No nothing.
Just Nicole Holland.
Nicole Holland. That'd be awesome. Do you have any kind of final words of wisdom or takeaways you'd like to leave my listeners with as we wrap things up?
I think I'm going to give them a homework assignment. And that is, within the next 30 days, I guarantee you will be in some networking social environment. It could be a conference. It could be a meeting of your peers. It could be a company meeting internally where you're seeing people around the water cooler. And what I ask people all the time is, networking and connecting are two different things. It's important as a connector to have a good network. That's fine. But to have really strong connections entails having this really strong connecting core. Try to deploy some of the muscles that we talked about in the show the next time you encounter somebody. Ask them great questions and really understand what's going on in their world. If you're uncomfortable going to these things, I want you to go to these things. Face your fear. Write down what that fear is called. Or even engaging in a conversation. I know some people don't like to start a conversation. They're wait for someone else to do it. Hey, try that fear and try and step up and say, hey, how are you? I want to introduce myself. Be authentic as you possibly can be. And in the time between now and then, try to explore figuring out what your superpower is and your super why, and explain and share that super why in those 3 quick sentences or sentence to somebody. When someone says, so what is it that you do? You can actually say your superpower right then and there. And don't be afraid to. If you write down your fear, I'm afraid of saying my superpower, fine. Write down and figure out how to move through it. Choose to face it, give it a name, and flip it on its head. And I think if you do that in the next 30 days, make a conscious effort, not only will your connections go stronger, but you will be amazed at the speed at which activities with those prospects, clients, targets actually matriculates. It's really important that great connections will speed up all of these things. So master connectors are good at getting things done quickly. And that's where I hope to get to.
I love it. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me and allowing me to share to your listeners.